Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for joining me today for the first Card Hoppin event of the year. If you're not familiar with Card Hoppin, it's a Facebook group where we have a different theme and technique every month. Usually that is related to card making, but for the month of January, to start off the new year where everybody is trying to organize and de-stash, we are doing a tips and tricks a card hopping event. If you're interested in participating in future hops, I'll go ahead and leave the link to the Facebook group below. You don't have to be on YouTube. You could have a blog or Instagram as well. But for my video today, I'm going to go over swatching and why I think it's important and super beneficial. And so I'm going to start out showing you kind of how I organize my swatches. I have these little binders that are 5.5 by 8.5. I used to purchase these from Walmart, and I haven't seen them there lately, but you can purchase them off of Amazon. And so these are mini 3-ring binders, and I also use the sheet protectors. The main reason, or one of the reasons that I use this method, is because I used to have my dies in these binders, and so I bought probably 9 or 10 of them and had them organized for my dies. So I had a magnetic sheet in them, and then I had the dies in there. They got very heavy. It took up a lot of space, and so I changed the way that I stored my dies, and then I had all these little binders left over. And I used to have all of my swatches in a little kind of a notebook, and it was getting really full. I didn't have the 3-ring method, and so I couldn't take stuff out and put stuff in. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up taking 2 of the binders and making them my swatch books, and it's worked out really great. These are inexpensive supplies to buy, and I actually, since I'm reusing these, I didn't have to buy any. I just have to buy the sheet protectors if I run out of them. I think swatching, it really is a personal preference how you organize your swatches, and for me, I organize in my binders by medium for the most part. So for example, in this binder I have my watercolors, my brush markers, my pencils, and then my inks. And if you haven't swatched before, or if you're re-swatching, it can be a timely endeavor, but the benefits, I think, far outweigh whatever amount of time you would initially spend to set up your system. It's great for organization, just knowing what supplies you have, being able to grab it if you're shopping. Especially online, I could just grab it and see what I have to make sure that I don't buy duplicates. But this size right here, this 5.5 by 8.5, it fits perfectly in my purse. So if I were to go into a store, I could bring my binder and not buy a duplicate as well. It's also great for just visualizing the colors you have. For example, seeing all the shades of blue you have or the shades of green you have. It's also a great reminder, because I pull mine out every day. It's a great reminder of, hey, I have the supply and I'm not using it. So at that point, you're either pulling it out to use it, or you're saying, well, am I really going to use it? Do I really like it? Maybe I need to get rid of it. So it's great for that as well. I use mine so much for project planning, and if you've watched my videos, you know I say a lot, I don't really know what I'm doing when I start out, but I always pick my colors first. That is where I start. When I'm designing a card, I always pick my colors, or have an idea of the colors I want to use or the medium I want to use on my card, and this is so helpful. Like I said, I pull this out every single day as a reference, and I just couldn't live without it. And then another reason why you might want to swatch is to get to know your medium, get to know your watercolor or your powder, especially for these right here, the color bursts and the watercolor powders. The colors that burst out of them, it's really awesome to see how they react when you spray with water, what they look like when they're watered down, and so it is just really great for helping you to get to know your supplies, how bright the color is, what they look like, how they react when you put them down. I also swatch my alcohol markers, and I will show you those here in a second. But just a tip for if you are swatching is I always try and use the paper that I'm going to use for that medium a majority of the time. So if I am swatching out, for example, a brush marker, I am always, almost always going to use Bristol Smooth cardstock. That is what I prefer. I love that paper for the brush markers. I think it spreads really well. And so I will, when I swatch, I will use Bristol Smooth cardstock to go ahead and swatch. For watercolor paints, a majority of the time I'm going to be using a watercolor paper, and so I will swatch on watercolor paper. And then for my alcohol markers, most of the time I am going to be swatching on Hammermill. I just received these Ohuhus for Christmas, and so I went ahead and I swatched them out. I'm going to include some of these swatches for my the swatches that I use. I will go ahead and include those files. So if you want, you can go ahead and grab the file, and I'll leave them blank so they're just squares so that you can swatch out your colors if you would like. I have just put these are 8.5 by 11. I have put them into some sheet protectors, and I just slide them on the side of where my markers are. And I have been so torn because once I got the Ohuhu markers, I know that I should get rid of some of my other alcohol markers that I don't use, and I just am having a really hard time doing that. So there they sit. So I have not swatched out any of these inks. These are actually the Color Hive inks from Maker Forte. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to go ahead and get these finished up. I don't do anything fancy. I have a stamping block that I have a detailed stamp as well as a solid stamp, and I just leave this at my desk, so whenever I need to swatch out an ink color, it's there and ready to use. And so I do one stamp in the detail and one in the more of the solid image. For this, I also end up doing a little bit of ink blending on the paper just to see what that looks like off of an ink blending brush. And that's basically what I do. I'm just going to repeat that for all of these colors. And then I will take that piece of paper once I'm finished and add that to the 3-ring page protector and insert that in the binder where that goes. I'm also going to swatch out, I received the Villainous Potion a few months back, and I haven't swatched those out yet. And so I'm going to go ahead, and I have a grid swatch that I have created for my Distress Oxides. And I will go ahead and grab that because there is plenty of room left on that to add colors. And to swatch out the oxides and the distress ink, I just use a finger dauber. It fits perfectly in this little 1 by 1 inch square. So I'm just going to finger dauber that on, write the name of the ink, and that's pretty much it. I don't have enough room on my distress ink swatch because it was done under my old system, and so I think what I'm going to do is just re-swatch everything for my distress ink. So I'm going to go ahead and create my grid sheet, and I am just taking a piece of Hammermill paper and a ruler and using my grid lines and a permanent marker to go ahead and add those grid lines. These are 1 by 1 inch squares, and I will repeat the process for adding that ink to the swatch. And then I also am going to swatch out one of these sprays that I have, and it is the Distress ink in the Villainous Potion as well. And for the spray, I use little cards that I have cut 1 3/4 to 1 3/4, and that I have found is the easiest way to swatch my watercolor powders and sprays, just because they can be swatched separately from everything else, and the spray doesn't get on anything else but that one square. And then I'll just take some adhesive and add that to my swatch book. And that is pretty much it. Swatching is a great way to get to know your supplies, a visual reference. I just think the benefits outweigh the amount of time it might take initially to get up and running. But I hope this gave you some ideas of some different things that you can do and ways you can organize. And I would love to know if you swatch and how you swatch. If you want to leave that in the comments below for others to read as well, that would be super helpful. But that is it for me today. I hope you liked this video. If you did like it or find it informative, please go ahead and give a thumbs up. As always, I thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me, and I hope to see you next time.